Let's change the subject and talk about the Agama Sutra, one of the Buddhist scriptures. Sermons of Sakyamuni Buddha, put together after his death by his best disciples. It reads as follows. This human life itself is all suffering. What is the cause of suffering? The main reason is our anti-mystical force. The anti-mystical force is a misunderstanding of the truth. For example, attachment. At its core, attachment is very attractive. It gives us pleasure. But it is not the truth. Anger protects us and satisfies our selfish desires. But it is not the truth. Even if we lie, for a time we can escape hardship and feel considerable relief. But this is not the truth. When sensual desire arises, we find someone and have sex. That desire will probably go away for a while. But that's not the truth. If you start listing it, there is no end to it, so many things that are not true. Otherwise, it's all called the anti-mystical force. Sakyamuni, the victor in truth, said that we suffer because of this anti-mystical force. Turn to your own experience and check whether this is true or not. Now, what should we do to destroy this anti-mystical force? Victor in truth Sakyamuni says the following. First, realize the suffering of this world. Realize that this whole world is suffering. Suffering as such always rises as long as we live. As long as we have both a gross physical body and a subtle body, a body that can pass into the astral world. So it says. It's a good word, isn't it? Rising. Usually suffering is dormant. But as we walk our path, in other words, as we live, we stumble, and they rise. This is called the emergence of suffering. And he says, know the eradication of suffering. What is the way to do this? This is where the Eightfold Holy Way comes in. But a layman can't practice the Eightfold Holy Way. In the conditions of our country, it is not possible. But since there may be those among you who would like to challenge this practice and try it, I will tell you about it just in case. Okay? So far, many religious figures have preached the Eightfold Holy Way. Furthermore, they have claimed that it is possible to practice it. However, I believe that although it is possible to engage in this spiritual practice to some degree, it is impossible to perform it accurately and correctly. You will understand why if you think about the exact meaning of the Eightfold Holy Way, which I will now discuss. 1. The right view. First of all, the first thing is the right view. Seeing right. Those who want to can write it down. What is seeing correctly? It means to see everything according to the law of the stages of emergence of the 12 conditions and to recognize that everything is suffering. However, we live in a society called our country. To get by, we must earn money. We have to eat. All those who have a family must love their wife and children. Then already here we will have to see that the right view is impossible, isn't it? I guess it is, isn't it? With practicing monks who have distanced themselves from society, it may be different, but we are deeply immersed in this world. And this world is a world of illusion, a world full of mistakes. I think it's useless to try to get the right view of things by being in it. Since I said I would tell you about the Eightfold Sacred Path, let's talk in general terms about the origin of suffering. Suffering arises according to the law of the stages of emergence of the 12 conditions. And the Eightfold Sacred Way says to pay attention to this with the practice of the right view. Although I have explained the law of the stages of emergence of the 12 conditions before, I will briefly repeat it here. The true ego, which was in a state of independent existence, had fallen under the influence of illusions because of the interference of the three gunas and had taken the wrong path. After gaining experience in the causal and astral worlds, it was born into the world of suffering and felt suffering. Then, as the true ego gained attachments, was seized by many things, and was reborn, its suffering increased. This is the law of the stages of emergence of the 12 conditions. 2. Right thinking. The next step, necessary for the correct understanding of each of the processes of the law of the stages of the 12 conditions, is right brain thinking. What kind of practice is this? First, it says that you should analyze the events of your daily life and the circumstances around you, and make sure that your analysis is based on the right view. Second, it says that you should analyze your actions and thoughts. This is right thinking. I believe you are capable of doing so. But since the prerequisite for right thinking is the right view, if you don't have the right view, right thinking will also be impossible. 3. Right speech. This is followed by right speech. This is much easier. Speak only the truth. Use kind words. 4. Right actions. Next is the right action. Here it speaks of daily life. Sakyamuni says, appreciate each day and persevere in your efforts. But this is too vague, isn't it? It speaks of Buddhist practice. So his statement means not to engage in anything other than spiritual practice. But that's probably impossible, too. If you apply that to your lay practitioners, it's like this. There's nothing you can do about what you're doing. But minimize your pleasures in family life and practice. Practice asana, pranayama, mudras, or guru yoga meditations and sandali as much as you can. Because one does not know when one will die. Maybe you will die tomorrow. Maybe you will die the day after tomorrow. But you have no guarantee of a future life. If you want to be happy in your next life, appreciate every day and persevere in your efforts. This is what you get. 5. The right life. While right action speaks to your daily life, right life governs life as a whole. Sakyamuni Buddha says, live your whole life in such a way as to awaken and come to attain true liberation and enlightenment. What is meant here is monasticism. It's also quite difficult because we have to work and take care of our family, too. If you leave your children to themselves, they will probably degenerate. If you don't take care of your parents, they will probably be sad. However, Sakyamuni said, don't care about such things, become a monk and persist in the practice that leads to liberation. Rip out all the roots of attachment and persevere in the pursuit of liberation. This is what right living is all about. 6. Right fixation of memory. Then comes the correct fixation of memory. What is meant by this? Being a monk is very hard. But you have to endure it, concentrate on yourself, and think about enlightenment continuously. This is called right memory fixation. So it is a process of the soul, of consciousness. 7. Right effort. Right effort is real action. For example, even if it's raining, but the water hasn't reached Manipura chakra, you have to keep meditating. Immerse yourself in the practice of prolonged meditation. Insist on spreading the right law. Observance of these many rules is the right effort. The sequence of right effort and right memory fixation can also be changed. 8. Right samadhi. And the last one is right samadhi. What is right samadhi? It means the right meditation. Right meditation, as I said before, is a meditation that completely eradicates the subconscious mind. You stop the subconscious mind and burn out its roots. Conduct this practice with all perseverance. This is the right samadhi. Thus, the Eightfold Sacred Path includes right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, right living, right memory fixation, right effort, and right samadhi. These 8 practices are called the Eightfold Holy Path. Can we, while in society, practice the Eightfold Holy Path? Of course not. Let us repeat briefly. The Eightfold Holy Way is 1. The right view. Seeing everything according to the law of the stages of emergence of the 12 conditions. 2. Right thinking. To achieve in practice the correct understanding of each of the processes of the law of the stages of emergence of the 12 conditions. 3. Right speech. To speak the truth and good words. 4. Right action. Making daily persistent efforts in Buddhist practice. 5. Right life. becoming a monk and striving for liberation. 6. Right memory fixation. Concentrate on ourselves and continually strive for enlightenment. 7. Right effort. To observe the precepts and practice as much as one can. 8. Right samadhi. To meditate with all persistence, which completely eradicates the subconscious mind. Moving on. After Victor in truth Sakyamuni left this world and his best disciples died, everyone became careless. They became careless because they were idiots. Do you understand why they became careless? Sakyamuni Buddha and his high disciples had outstanding superhuman powers. They devoted themselves wholeheartedly to practicing and understanding the truth. Because their spiritual level was so high, they had many followers. For this reason, other Buddhist practitioners also did not suffer from a lack of food because of the support they received just for the name, Buddhism. They did not worry about a place to sleep because people believed them. Therefore, although they were still only practicing spiritually and did not have any abilities, they still enjoyed life and did not need anything. After Sakyamuni Buddha entered nirvana, they, careless and not seriously practicing, found themselves capable only of expounding the teachings. So I have heard. Once the most venerated one, Sakyamuni, was in the garden of Anathapindika in the Jeta Grove in Savatthi. In the end, they could only retell the teachings. On the other hand, the influence of Brahmanism, which is the source of yoga, declined because of the spread of Buddhism. But the Brahmins thought, we have to do something, and they refined the old type of yoga that had existed since ancient times to use it as a weapon to oppose Buddhism. Time passed. As I said, Buddhism fell into decline. On the other hand, yoga, which developed out of Brahmanism, gained strength. So those followers of Buddhism who felt, yogis have more power, they will lead us to the high worlds, began to abandon Buddhism and its monks. Then the Buddhist monks began to experience difficulties as well. They could no longer live under such circumstances. It was at this time that certain particularly prominent monks struggled with spiritual practice. They pondered how to meet the needs of the faithful. Eventually, Grand Chariot Buddhism was born. There is no Eightfold Holy Path in Big Chariot Buddhism, nor are there the 7 species and the 37 elements of liberation. This does not mean, however, that Big Chariot Buddhism is in any way inferior to ancient Buddhism. After all, it has the 6 paramitas. These are the 6 kinds of the most persistent and consistent practice that I always talk about. An important feature of the 6 limits is that they include a process by which even laypeople can achieve liberation. I guess you could say that this way of practice is just right for those who can't become a monk, especially those who seek liberation by remaining in society. Since there are newcomers among you as well, let me touch on the subject of the 6 limits again here. 1. Sacrifice. First of all, sacrifice. You may think, all religious groups call us to make offerings. Isn't this a way to raise money? There may be some organizations that raise money with that in mind. But the essential meaning of sacrifice is not to cling to material things, or not to cling to peace of mind, or not to hold on to erroneous fixed ideas. This is the principle of sacrifice. Mere mortals hold on to things, hold on to their stability, hold on to fixed ideas. So here the practice of sacrifice is necessary to remove attachments. Therefore, those who can sacrifice all they have, those who can help others to find peace, to give them a hand despite their suffering, those who understand the law of truth and can explain the truth to others, they may not particularly engage in the practice of sacrifice, because they have no attachments. 2. Keeping the commandments. Those who respond to the Guru's words, "You can't do this. Do this," always reply, "All right," and immediately do it completely. They no longer need to observe the commandments. However, mere mortals are not capable of this, which is why this practice exists. In addition, because of their selfishness and their passions, they want a lot. Keeping the commandments is necessary to stop these desires. Do you understand? 3. Patience. The third is patience. Those who constantly challenge their limits, even if they are being torn apart or even if they are choking on blood and dying, no longer need to practice the parameter of patience. This is natural. However, because our will is very weak, the practice of patience is necessary for us. 4. Persevering effort. The last one is persevering effort. Those who always put practice above worldly affairs do not need the parameter of persevering effort. But mere mortals seek worldly pursuits and pleasures rather than spiritual practice. This is why the parameter of persistent effort is so important to us. This is why we need this ultimate practice. As you may have noticed, there is no denial of worldliness here. Is it saying that you should treat everything as suffering? Is it saying that you must give up attachments altogether? About the observance of the precepts, look at Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Doesn't it primarily talk about what you should do and what you shouldn't do? The parameter of patience strengthens the will, just like in the processes of Raja Yoga. After that, go into spiritual practice. This is the perseverance effort. In the 6 parameters, the persevering effort is followed by the limit of meditation, and then the last limit in the knowledge of all things. This corresponds with the processes of spiritual concentration, meditation, and samadhi in yoga. This similarity appears, I think, because historically Buddhism and yoga have competed with and benefited from each other. But not only that. These teachings have become similar to each other because they both represent the path to attaining truth, which is the same everywhere. I think that the Eightfold Holy Way, the 7 species, and the 37 elements of liberation are wonderful methods of spiritual practice. However, they cannot be used in our time. They are unsuitable. For example, the right view from the Eightfold Holy Way cannot be performed in our country. We have no manual for the right view. Only I can show the true way of seeing things. Also, those who are in the world of illusion and whose true ego is still deep in darkness are probably incapable of feeling suffering. They believe that there are many different pleasures. So it is very doubtful that they will be able to look at things properly. There is no guide. Practicing the right view is simply impossible on its own, and if so, we will stagnate on the first process of the Eightfold Holy Way. That is why we have a unique system of spiritual practice that works best for us. And it will lead us to enlightenment and liberation. This is the system of practice that exists. So I want all of you to do spiritual practice with complete confidence. This is not a commercial project. For as many people as possible to come across this information, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment of 8 words or more.